On the night of August 17, 2005, a gathering of 5 companions went out for supper and wound up examining a secret cavern in favor of Y Mountain. During the discussion, one of the young ladies in the gathering, Jennifer Gilbreth, started imparting her experience to the well-known cave. She related a past terrifying occurrence where she had dropped from the virus, yet figured out how to make it out securely. The gathering energetically nicknamed the cavern of death. In the end, Jennifer persuaded her companions to check it out, consoling them that they would have the option to hold their breath and swim the 15 F2 to the next secret cavern inside. Blake Donor, Scott McDonald, and aerial vocalist all consented to join the experience anyway. A 5th companion, Joseph Ferguson, ruled against creeping into the rough opening of the cavern. With them, he selected to remain outside calmly, hanging tight for their return. At first, the cavern may not appear to be welcoming with its water-covered surface, and a level of only 4 feet passage includes hunching down and moving through the almost 100-t entry burrow inside a shallow stream, albeit this could not draw in ordinary climbers. People acquainted with the secret cavern inside are attracted to the captivating test. The mystery segment of this sinkhole requires bringing down yourself through 18x24 in water-filled opening in the ground. The people who have investigated the cavern before referenced that it's not difficult to become bewildered and alarmed in the submerged passage because of its little dull space. That evening, the gathering chose to challenge themselves in this cold and unpleasant cavern. It was very nearly 4 a.m. when they came to the cave region. At a fork inside the cavern, the gathering, with just a solitary spotlight, followed a wet way that went to the right. They voyaged one more 50 prior to arriving at a cave with an opening in the ground, prompting a submerged passage. Each in turn, they marshaled the fortitude to bring down themselves into the limited dull entry, loaded up with cold water. Following 15 minutes of no you go first, Jennifer chose to start to lead the pack, since she was the one in particular who had been there before. They noticed her head vanishing under the water, making a little wave. As she traveled through to the opposite end, the passage loaded up with water was essentially as minimized as a normal television, estimating only 2 FD in width and 4 ft in level consistently. Blake, Scott, and Ariel slid into the passage, complying with the course brought up by Jennifer. There is a rope that navigates the passage to assist pioneers with overcoming securely. One end is attached to a stone at the entry, and the other to a sign in the little second cave. The rope permits voyagers to pull themselves along the passage, yet assuming that they lose the rope, their risk level ascents, particularly assuming the regularly clear water becomes blurred by residue blended from the passage floor by travelers swimming through the passage. This is precisely exact thing occurred with a past pioneer named Brian Lamry that had to deal with the passage previously. Despite the fact that he was with experienced companions who aided guide him, he lost the rope returning to the leave. He said while swimming back from the sinkhole, he missed the leave opening and wound up at a impasse a few feet past the opening. By hurrying in reverse, he had the option to migrate the opening and get out. He was incredibly fortunate, as he found the opening simply a small part of a second prior breathing in a lung brimming with water around 5:00 a.m. Each of the 4 effectively arrived at the inward chamber inside. They arose through one more opening, attracting breath. The restricted space between the chest-high water and a 6 FT tightened roof. The cave had the limit with regards to up to 8 individuals, offering roughly 3 ft of airspace. Over the water, simultaneously, Joseph kept up with his patient vigil for the arrival of his companions, dubious about the span of their cavern investigation because of the shortfall of a reasonable arrangement after entering the internal chamber. Each of the 4 were logical, anxious, and winded, their hearts hustling with adrenaline. After getting away from the water, they would have taken an act, easing full breath, unfought. Luckily, the air in this conservative space was most likely compromised in buckling terrible air, alludes to any air that strays from the ordinary synthesis of 21% oxygen and 79%. Basically, nitrogen with follow gases at irrelevant rates. The stale nature of this cavern, combined with a shut water source, probably prompted a development of carbon dioxide continuously as guests waited in the inward chamber. The oxygen levels decreased and carbon dioxide started to gather. Carbon dioxide is perceived for its propensity to collect in limestone caves because of disintegration and leakage from rotting plant matter. Moreover, there were signs that candles were left consuming inside, diminishing the accessible oxygen with no wind currents. Carbon dioxide would have accumulated at more elevated levels close to the water. Once inside the cavern, they might have quickly understood the trouble in breathing and the earnestness to pass on promptly. Because of the little size of the entry opening, just a single individual could explore the tight passage and rise through the leaf opening at a time. Jennifer, being quick to exit, attempted to find the leave opening prior to running winded. All things considered, she encountered the decreased limit with regards to breath holding in the event that the oxygen level drifted around 10 to 12% in the cavern. She would have had a simple 1 moment of breath holding prior to blacking out. Moreover, she could have lost the rope in the water, obfuscated by residue, further confusing a generally sad circumstance. Following 45 minutes, Joseph chose to slither inside the cavern and really look at the watery opening. Yet there was no indication of the electric lamp or development of the gathering. Ferguson became apprehensive and started calling different companions who knew about the cavern. In the long run, at 6:25 a.m., he called the police. Ignorant about Jennifer's battle, her sidekicks Ariel, Blake, and Scott stayed caught in the internal cavern, choking in the stale air. After a short commencement, Ariel, feeling the impacts of expanded carbon dioxide, propelled herself forward, frantically looking for the opening in the limited dull entry. With the eruption of energy, Ariel swam through the water, her hands connecting for the subtle leave. The truth of feeling her companion's dormant body in the bound space uplifted the frenzy. The alleged clear section now felt claustrophobic, with no space for two to explore the tight opening. In the meantime, Blake and Scott, breathing the weakening air, confronted the rising test of endurance. The uneasiness escalated, and as time passes, the earnestness to escape developed. As the following companion, Blake, entered the beck water-filled burrow, the experiences with Ariel and Jennifer elevated the turmoil, confounded and terrified the little faintly lit space. Offered no respite. Ariel, oblivious and close to death, required saving. Yet the restricted aspects made it almost unimaginable for Blake to move past her, the last individual from the gathering who stayed in the oxygen drain chamber for a lengthy period, entered the passage to rejoin with their companions at the furthest edge. Not long after finding the hindered section alarm set in such a compromised condition, he could have quickly blacked out. Once salvage teams showed up, they started siphoning water out of the cavern and siphoning oxygen back in to give air to the people in question. In the event that they were alive, running out of air, the siphoning brought down the water level by 2 ft, permitting them to securely enter and start looking through. It was almost 4 hours from the hour of the call to the police before searchers found the main body in the submerged passage. In the midst of the murkiness and urgency, Jennifer's dormant body was found right inside the passage. Nighttime of exertion. Ariel, Blake and Scott were found together confronting the leave opening. Jennifer's body could have impeded the way for the other three. As they attempted to get out, one of the 3 bodies was found on the floor of the passage. The other 2 bodies were found drifting. Post-mortem examinations affirmed suffocating as the reason for death, and the proof sorted out from the scene shed light on the grievous destiny of 4 strong, youthful grown-ups. The cavern entrance, now a grave dedication, was loaded up with concrete, an unmistakable sign of the perils hiding inside, and a serious work to forestall further death toll in the unforgiving Gollum cave.